Imagine standing in a dim corridor of your own mind, fingertips brushing against a door marked "What if?" Behind it, a voice you ache to hear, a face you crave to see, a connection that flickers like a ghost in your periphery. You feel it, the pull, the gravitational ache, and yet, the door stays shut. The phone stays silent. Why? Here's the paradox: the person who haunts your thoughts wants to reach out. They draft messages they never send. They linger at the edge of your social orbit, close enough to taste the gravity between you, yet paralyzed by some invisible force. You are both prisoner and warden in this dance of silence. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of us we bury beneath layers of should and must. That unspoken terror of being truly seen. What if their silence isn't indifference, but fear? Fear of their own hunger, fear of the dormant chaos your presence might awaken. Ask yourself, when you last held back, what demon whispered no? Was it shame? The dread of rejection? Or something deeper, a primal rebellion against the vulnerability that love demands? We are mosaics of every wound we've refused to name. And so, perhaps, are they. To contact you would be to confront the parts of themselves they've exiled, the neediness, the desperation, the raw, unvarnished want. Easier to romanticize the silence, to cloak cowardice in mystery, than to risk the annihilation of their carefully curated self. But here's the razor's edge: what if their avoidance has nothing to do with you at all? What if you're merely a mirror, reflecting back the fragments of their soul they've labeled unacceptable? To love you would be to love those fragments. And that is a war most would rather abandon than fight. So we spin narratives to numb the ache. They're busy. They'll come around. Lies taste sweeter than the truth, that some silences are tombs. That desire alone cannot resurrect what another's fear has killed. What if their absence is the only language they have left? This is the labyrinth. You stand at its center, clutching the thread of why. To follow it will require more than logic. It will demand the surrender of every fairy tale you've ever told yourself about control, about worth, about the illusion that love is something to be earned rather than unleashed. But let's go deeper. What if this silence is not a rejection, but a test? A gauntlet thrown by the universe to see if you'll cling to the child's cry of, "Why don't they want me?" or rise to the Stoics' question, "What does this moment demand of me?" Jung warned that the unexamined life is a prison of projections. Are you interpreting their silence as a verdict on your worth, or could it be a cipher pointing you back to your own unlived life? The ancients called this Amor Fati, the love of fate. Not passive resignation, but the alchemy of turning pain into power. What if their refusal to speak is the very forge where your courage is tempered? Where you learn to stop begging for closure and instead become the architect of your own meaning? But first, you must confront the shadow. Not theirs, yours. The part of you that equates their attention with oxygen. The wound that conflates silence with annihilation. What ancient script are you reciting? A parent's neglect? A lover's betrayal? A childhood vow to never again be the one who cares more? Until you drag these ghosts into the light, you'll keep mistaking their avoidance for a referendum on your soul. Tomorrow, we dissect the wound. You've traced the contours of their silence, but now we descend into the marrow of the matter. Why does this wound persist? Why does their absence carve deeper than any presence? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. But here you are, adrift in the storm of what if, clinging to the wreckage of their unspoken words. Let me ask you plainly, is it their silence that tortures you, or the story you've grafted onto it? Consider this: two prisoners sit in adjacent cells. One stares at the wall, resigned. The other claws at the stones until his fingers bleed. The chains are identical. The suffering is not. Epictetus, born a slave, understood this truth: men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. You've mistaken the ache of longing for a verdict, proof of your inadequacy. But what if it's merely a mirror held to your own refusal to confront the prison you built? Let's dissect the anatomy of your pain. When their name lights up your phone, your pulse quickens. When it doesn't, your mind spins tales of unworthiness. But here's the lie you've swallowed, that their attention is the sun, and without it, you wither. Seneca called this the poverty of desire, the delusion that peace lies in the hands of others. You've handed them a scepter, crowned them judge of your soul, and then wondered why you tremble at the echo of their footsteps. Think of the last time you rewrote a text a dozen times, deleting, retyping, deleting again. Each draft a confession, I need you to see me. But what if that need is not for them, but for the version of yourself that only exists in their gaze? Jung warned of the animus and anima, the unconscious selves we project onto others. Are you in love with a person, or a phantom? A reality, or a salve for the childhood ache of being overlooked? The Stoics whispered a dangerous truth: suffering is optional. Not because pain is an illusion, but because meaning is malleable. When a ship sinks, the sailor curses the storm. The merchant mourns his cargo. The philosopher, treading water, studies the stars. The event is the same. The suffering is chosen. Your crisis, then, is not their silence, it's your insistence that this silence means something. That it's a verdict, a prophecy, a debt unpaid. But what if you stripped it bare? What if their silence is neither kind nor cruel, but neutral, a blank canvas onto which you've splattered every color of your unmet needs? The Buddha called this the second arrow. The first arrow is the event, the unanswered message, the cancelled plan, the void where their voice should be. The second arrow is the one you fire into your own chest: they don't care. I'm unlovable. This pain is forever. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire besieged by plague and war, wrote in the dead of night, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. You framed their avoidance as a wall. What if it's a bridge? A call to confront not their shadows, but your own addiction to earning love, to performing, proving, perfecting. What if this silence is the universe shaking you awake, demanding, who are you when no one is watching? Let's be ruthless. You cling to the fantasy of their return because it's easier than facing the void within. Their absence becomes a shrine to your unresolved hunger, a hunger no human could ever satisfy. Seneca again, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. You've starved yourself on crumbs of attention while feasting on the banquet of your own lack. Here's the pivot. The Stoics spoke of prohairesis, the will to choose your judgments. Right now, you're choosing to kneel before an altar of absence. But what if you reclaimed that power? What if their silence became not a punishment, but a portal? A space to ask, what does this not receiving teach me about what I've never received, from myself? You've been asking the wrong question. Not, why don't they contact me, but, why does their contact define me? The answer lies in the attic of your psyche, where a younger you learn to equate love with conquest. To perform. To please. To shrink. That child still grips the steering wheel, veering toward familiar ditches of abandonment. Until you gently unclasp their hands, you'll keep crashing into the same walls. But beware, this is no call to numbness. The Stoics were not ascetics, they were alchemists. Seneca wept for his lost friends. Marcus trembled under the weight of empire. They felt deeply, then chose deeply. Your task is not to transcend desire, but to refine it. To want connection without chains. To love without leasing your self-worth to another's whims. The ancients practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Not to dwell on dread, but to disarm it. What if you applied this to your silent specter? If they never speak again, what will I do? The answer, whispered through centuries: you will live. You will adapt. You will find meaning in the unanswerable. The storm isn't coming, dear listener. You're already in it. And the only way out is through. Tomorrow, we trace the scars of those who tried to flee. Let's speak of consequences. Let's speak of the rot that blooms when we mistake our reactions for truth, our hungers for destiny. You've asked why they don't contact you, but the deeper question is this: what happens when you refuse to see the prison you've built from their silence? When you confuse craving for purpose and obsession for love? History is littered with the wreckage of those who dared not answer. Take Nero, Emperor of Rome, who burned a city to feel alive. A man so enslaved by his need for adoration that he fiddled while his soul smoldered. Or Cleopatra, who weaponized desire to fill the void where self-worth should have lived, only to die by the bite of a serpent, a metaphor too perfect to ignore. These were not villains. They were mirrors. They show us the cost of letting the unanswered fester into madness. You think your torment is unique? Epictetus, a man who walked in chains, would laugh at your delusion. Freedom is secured not by the fulfilling of desires, but by the removal of desire. Yet here you are, chainmail crafted from their potential replies, their hypothetical apologies. You've built a kingdom where every unanswered text is a treason, every silent hour a betrayal. And you wonder why you feel like a fugitive in your own mind? Consider the cognitive trap you've sprung on yourself: confirmation bias. You scroll through their social media, hunting for clues like a detective in a conspiracy of one. A liked photo becomes a breadcrumb, a missed call becomes a manifesto. You've curated evidence to fit a narrative of rejection because the brain would rather suffer than float in ambiguity. But here's the poison in that brew: the more you feed this story, the more real it becomes. You are the author, the audience, and the actor in a tragedy you refuse to close. And what of negativity bias, that primal glitch that fixates on the one storm cloud in a clear sky? You dissect every past interaction, mining them for proof of your inadequacy. That joke you overshared. That vulnerability you exposed. You replay these moments on a loop, sharpening them into knives. But what if you're wrong? What if they remember none of it? What if your perceived crimes exist only in the courtroom of your own making? The Stoics named this propathia, the initial, involuntary flare of emotion. The gasp when you see their name. The pang when you don't. But here's where the fork in the road appears: do you let that gasp become a scream, or do you meet it with the discipline of a warrior? Most choose the scream. They marinate in the ache, romanticize it, until it becomes their identity. I am the one who loves too much. I am the one left behind. Labels etched not in ink, but in self-inflicted scars. Look at Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, throwing herself under a train not because of Vronsky's indifference, but because she could no longer bear the story she'd written about his indifference. A story that grew teeth in the dark. Or Van Gogh, slicing off his ear to silence the voices that mistook passion for pathology. These are not tales of love, they are warnings. Blueprints of how unchecked longing metastasizes into self-destruction. You've become an architect of hypotheticals. If I'd said this, if they'd done that, but the Stoics called this the vanity of hindsight. As if life is a script to be rewritten, rather than a fire to be stepped through. Marcus Aurelius, facing barbarians at the empire's edge, wrote, "The thing you think is killing you is actually saving you." What if their silence is the barbarian at your gate, not to destroy you, but to show you the flimsiness of the walls you've built? Let's name the real demon: attachment to outcomes. You've tied your worth to a result you cannot control. Their reply. Their return. Their redemption. This is the gambler's fallacy, dressed in longing's clothes. You keep feeding coins into a slot machine that only pays out in grief, convinced the next pull will be the one. But the house always wins. Always. And what of Amor Fati, the love of fate? Nietzsche's cry to embrace life's chaos as if you'd chosen it yourself. You've rejected this. Instead, you've warped their silence into a fable of victimhood. A modern-day Cassiopeia, bound to the rock of your own narrative, waiting for Poseidon's whale to devour you. But the whale isn't coming. The tragedy you crave is a no-show. All that's left is the rock, and your stubborn refusal to step off. The data is damning. Studies show the brain processes rejection like physical pain. But here's the twist, that pain is a relic, a fire alarm wired into our skulls when exile meant death. You are not a tribesman banished to the wilderness. You are a modern soul, mistaking a severed Wi-Fi signal for a death sentence. Yet you let this primordial glitch hijack your peace. Why? Because it's easier to play the martyr than to face the terrifying truth. You are free. Free to stop waiting. Free to stop dissecting. Free to take Seneca's advice, let all your efforts be directed to something, let it keep that end in view. But what end? The end of them? No, the end of you as a hostage to their ambiguity. The end of the lie that love is a transaction to be balanced. Hear the echo of Epictetus' chains. No man is free who is not master of himself. You've handed the keys to your mastery to a ghost. A ghost who may not even know they haunt you. A ghost who, in all likelihood, is battling their own shadows, their own unspoken wars. But that's irrelevant now. This isn't about their salvation, it's about yours. The consequences of Stoic ignorance are etched in every anxious heartbeat, every midnight scroll, every rehearsal of conversations that will never happen. You've conflated suffering with devotion, as if love is measured in how much you can endure. But love does not live in endurance. It lives in expansion. In the courage to say, this silence is not my enemy. It is my teacher. Enough diagnosis. Let's talk revolt. Let's talk about the moment the prisoner realizes the bars are made of paper, that the only thing caging them is their belief in the cage. You've dissected the wound. You've traced the rot. Now, we ignite the Stoic revolution. Not with swords, but with a single question: what if you stopped waiting for permission to be free? Marcus Aurelius wrote his greatest truths not in a palace, but on battlefields. Epictetus taught not from a throne, but a slave's mat. These men knew a secret: power isn't seized. It's surrendered to. Not the surrender of defeat, but the radical yielding to what is. So let's begin where all revolutions do, with a blade to the throat of illusion. Step 1, Premeditatio Malorum. The premeditation of evils. Seneca practiced this daily. He'd sit in his chamber and visualize the worst: exile, betrayal, death. Not to wallow, but to vaccinate. When his fears materialized, when Nero ordered his suicide, Seneca met the blade with chilling calm. What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears. He'd already died 1,000 deaths in his mind. The real one held no sting. Apply this to your silent specter. Close your eyes. Imagine the worst: they never speak again. They love another. They forget your name. Let the wave crash over you. Now ask, am I still breathing? The answer is your emancipation. You feared an apocalypse that leaves you intact. The monster under the bed was your own shadow. Step 2, Dichotomy of control. Epictetus' sword and shield. Some things are within our control, others are not. Your thoughts. Yours. Their reactions. A distant country. You've been a gardener watering concrete, screaming at the sky for rain. Stop. Tend only the soil you own. Here's the ritual: write 2 lists. What I control: your breath. Your values. Your actions today. What I don't: their past. Their silence. The future. Burn the second list. Watch the smoke carry your illusions to the stars. Step 3, Memento Mori. Remember, you must die. The Stoics weren't morbid, they were urgent. That text you're obsessing over, the one they haven't sent, you'll both be dust long before its ghosts matter. A Roman general kept a slave whose sole job was to whisper in his ear, "This too shall pass." Be your own slave. Your own general. But this isn't nihilism. It's clarity. The Japanese practice kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold. The cracks aren't hidden, they're hallowed. Your fractures, the abandonment, the silence, the hunger, are your gold. Stop hiding them. Stop begging for glue. Step 4, virtuous action. Here's where the rubber meets the road. Cato the Younger, the Stoic who defied Caesar, didn't just think about justice, he bled for it. When your hands shake to text them, act. But not toward them, toward you. Run. Write. Build. Create a life so compelling that their silence becomes background noise. Love is not a negotiation. It's a vow. Not to them, but to your own integrity. Zeno, founder of Stoicism, said, happiness is a good flow of life. Not a stagnant pond of what if, but a river carving its own course. Step 5, Amor Fati. Love of fate. Nietzsche's masterpiece. When the storm comes, don't hide, dance. Your person's silence isn't an obstacle. It's the path. It's asking you, how badly do you want to meet the unshakable version of yourself? Socrates demonstrated this in his cell, rejecting escape to drink the hemlock. His students wept. He laughed. You bury a body, not a soul. You've been trying to escape your cell, not realizing the door's been open. Walk out. But first, kiss the walls that held you. Practical exercise. For 1 week, live as if their silence is a gift. Each time you crave contact, write a letter to your future self instead. Seal it. Date it. Store it under your bed. By week's end, you'll have a coffin of old selves, and lighter hands. The radical shift, you've sought closure like a supplicant. But closure isn't given. It's taken. When Nelson Mandela walked out of prison after 27 years, he didn't demand apologies. He said, as I walked out the door toward my freedom, I knew that if I did not leave all the anger, hatred, and bitterness behind, I would still be in prison. Apply this ruthlessly. Their silence is Robben Island. Will you rot there, or will you turn the key? Not by changing them, but by deposing the warden in your mind. The final test, go to a mirror. Look yourself in the eye. Say, I release you. Not to them, to you. To the version of you that's been chained to a ghost. Watch as the reflection shifts. The cracks glow gold. This is the Stoic revolution. Not a battle cry, but a whisper, I am already free. I just forgot to act like it. Here's the final truth, the one that will either break you or birth you. You were never meant to beg for love. You were meant to become it. To stop chasing reflections and become the light itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote on his deathbed, look back at the beauty of the world, like a man passing from life to life. But you've been staring at a single closed door while the universe swings open 1,000 others. Imagine dawn breaking over a battlefield. Carrion birds circle. Smoke rises. And there, in the carnage, a soldier kneels. Not in prayer, but in awe. He sees the corpses not as loss, but as libations to something older than empires. This is living according to nature. Not trees and sunsets, but the raw, pulsing logos, the fire that binds atoms and galaxies and the space between two strangers' hands. The Stoics didn't preach indifference. They worshipped coherence. To align with nature is to accept that storms rage, rivers flood, and humans leave. But it's also to recognize your place in the weave. You are both the thread and the hand that stitches. When you obsess over their silence, you're not just ignoring nature, you're spitting on the loom. Consider the last leaf clinging to an oak in November. It shudders, resists, curses the wind. But the tree knows, the leaf must fall to make way for spring. Your attachment to their voice is that leaf. Let it go, and you don't lose love, you become fertile ground for it. But how? Start here, stop pathologizing pain. The modern world sells you antidepressants for heartbreak, platitudes for grief, as if sadness is a glitch. The Stoics knew better. Seneca wrote, "Tears purge the heart of what harasses it. Let the silence carve you. Let it hollow out the rod of neediness until all that's left is the altar of your unshakable core." This is cosmic humility. You are a speck, and the speck contains multitudes. When you fixate on one person's absence, you shrink the universe to a keyhole. Epictetus, the slave-turned-sage, put it bluntly, you are a little soul carrying around a corpse. Stop dragging your corpse to their doorstep. Burn it. Scatter the ashes. Then plant a garden where it lay. The ancients spoke of sympathia, the interconnectedness of all things. That text they didn't send. It's woven into the same web that holds supernovas and your childhood dog's final breath. You think this is poetry? It's physics. Your loneliness is a ripple in a quantum field. Your longing, a vibration in the spine of God. So what does living according to nature demand? First, courage. Not the absence of fear, but the resolve to act with it. Write the letter you'll never send. Dance naked in your living room. Tell the truth to someone who can't handle it. Courage is the axe that splits the ice around your heart. Second, justice. Not law, but alignment. When you resent their silence, you commit injustice against yourself. You turn your soul into a courtroom where they stand trial for crimes they never intended. Release them. Forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Third, wisdom. The discernment to separate fact from fiction. The fact, they haven't contacted you. The fiction, that this defines you. Zeno said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen twice as much as we speak." But you've been listening to the wrong voices, the ghosts, the algorithms, the should-haves. Tune your ear to the hum beneath the noise, the steady drum of now. Fourth, temperance. Not denial, but right proportion. Want them? Fine. But want yourself more. Love them? Good. But love your freedom better. The Buddha ate rice. Jesus drank wine. Excess isn't the enemy, imbalance is. You've been asking, why don't they choose me? The answer has always been here, you were never meant to be chosen. You are the chooser. The axe in the woods. The flame in the dark. The logos in flesh. So let's end where we began, with a door. But this time, it's not in your mind, it's your front door. Open it. Walk through. The world is not your enemy. The silence is not your curse. The wind on your face is the same that carried Caesar's legions, Cleopatra's sighs, and the last breath of every star that ever died to make your body possible. You are made of stardust and stoic fire. Act like it.